Whisky.de. Treffpunkt feiner Geister.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Whisky.de, dem Treffpunkt feiner Geister. Und heute bin ich bei der Journeyman Distillery in Michigan. Das ist eine kleine Craft Distillery mit angeschlossenem Restaurant, wo Whisky hergestellt wird seit 2010. Die Journeyman Distillery achtet besonders auf ihre Zutaten. Und zwar verwendet sie nur Bio, Koscher und Getreide aus der Region. Das heißt, hier oben im Norden und im Norden, das heißt Michigan, Illinois. Und das ist jetzt der Grain Cooker, also die Mash-Tun, die gerade arbeitet. Und das Besondere daran ist, sie kann geheizt werden, was schon abgeschlossen ist. Und zurzeit wird sie gerade runtergekühlt, dass das Mash nicht zu heiß ist, wenn es in die Fermentation geht. Hier wird gerade ein 4-Grain Whisky gemacht. Er besteht zu gleichen Teilen aus Mais, gemälzter Gerste, Weizen und Roggen. Und den werde ich jetzt mal probieren. Oh, noch relativ heiß. Schmeckt wie ein sehr süßes, Müsli. Wie ein sehr süßer Müsli-Brei. Ist noch keine Hefe drin. Jetzt geht es dann zur Fermentation. Die Journeyman Brennerei hat 5 dieser Fermentierkessel mit 2400 Litern Inhalt. Und hier wird dann die Maische mit Hefe versetzt und dann zum Distillersbier gemacht. Das Ganze hat auch noch einen Wassermantel und wird dann auch gekühlt, sodass wir eine etwas langsamere und etwas beruhigtere Fermentation haben. Und am Ende kommen wir nach 5 Tagen so auf ca. 10% Alkohol. Nach der Fermentation endet das Distillersbier hier in diesem Kessel. Was besonders ist hier, wir haben keinen Sour Mash Whisky, sondern das hier ist eine Sweet Mash. Das heißt, all das, was übrig bleibt von der Destillation, wird nicht zurück in die Mash-Tun oder in den Fermentierer geworfen, sondern das wird einfach entsorgt. Nachdem hier das Distillersbier in diesem Kessel ist, wird es über Dampfspiralen erhitzt und der alkoholische Dampf steigt auf. Nachdem er hier durch den Kessel gegangen ist, geht er durch versteckte, die hinter diesem Schild hier versteckt sind, Rohre in die Column Still und steigt dann in der Column Still auf. Über diese kleinen Hebel kann man dann einstellen, wie stark denn der Alkohol vom Wasser getrennt werden muss, da hier Böden drin liegen, die man auf- oder zumachen kann. Alles, was dann hier kondensiert, läuft wieder über eine Leitung zurück in den Kessel und wird wieder gebrannt. Nachdem wir dann oben unsere Alkoholdämpfe haben, gehen sie über den Linearm ganz auf die andere Seite und werden in diesen Zylinder kondensiert. Und hier kommt dann das fertige Produkt raus. Zurzeit wird gerade ein Rye Whisky gebrannt. Der Rohbrand, das Herzstück, ist hier unten in diesem Fass. Und hier oben befindet sich der Nachlauf. Und jetzt werde ich mal den Nachlauf probieren. Habe ich noch nie gemacht. Schmeckt ein wenig bitter. Und dann mal das Herzstück. Herzstück ist auf jeden Fall nicht so bitter, aber dafür um einiges trockener und fruchtiger. Ja, das wird bestimmt mal ein guter Whisky. So, hier im Lagerhaus sieht man dann, was so eine Craft Distillery eigentlich noch machen kann. Und zwar legen die sehr viel Wert auf Detail. Jedes der Fässer wird mit so einer Schablone beschrieben und bekommt dann noch einzelne Sachen drauf geschrieben, was in diesem Fass eigentlich ist. So, und dann schauen wir uns mal so ein Fass an. Oben Journeyman Distillery, made in 3 Oaks. Das ist einfach, wo das Zeug herkommt, aus der Distillerie und wo der Ort ist. DSP ist die Nummer der Brennerei und hier ist ein Buggy Whip Wheat Whisky drin, 2015 abgefüllt und mit 60%. Die Brennerei hat viele von diesen kleinen Fässern, das ist relativ üblich für die Craft-Brennereien. Aber hier haben wir dann auch schon größere Fässer. Zum Beispiel haben sie schon 25 Fässer der normalen Standardgröße des 53-Gallonen-Fasses. Außerdem experimentiert aber die Brennerei noch ein bisschen, dass man einfach rausfinden kann, was es noch für Geschmäcker gibt und was man für tolle Whiskys noch auf den Markt bringen kann. So, wir sind jetzt durch die Produktion durch und jetzt probieren wir mal die Produkte, die es bei Journeyman gibt. Und der nächste Teil wird jetzt dann auf Englisch stattfinden. So, I'm here with Bill Walter. You're the founder of the company. So how did you come to distilling whiskey?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I was fortunate enough to move to Scotland in 2000. Spent 2 years there and learned a lot about whiskey while I was living there. I always tell people, for instance, here in Michigan, if there are 140 world-class distilleries right here in the state of Michigan, it just completely changes the way you look at a spirit. So living in Scotland, there's over 140 really wonderful world-class distilleries. So while I was living there, I really got a unique perspective. Whiskey in Scotland is part of their soul, it's part of their culture, and I was very fortunate to pick up some of that history and that heritage while living in Scotland. I developed a passion for whiskey while I was there.
Okay. So you just started the distillery in 2010 now?
Yes.
So you already brought out some great whiskeys?
Yeah, I started the distillery in 2010. We started distilling in July of 10, and we've gone through this process, and we have 5 different whiskeys here for you to look at, and maybe we can taste some of them.
Okay, yeah. Let's start with the first one then.
Okay. Well, my favorite product, it's really kind of our flagship, is our Last Feather whiskey, and that's our rye, and it's actually the product that you tasted off the still, a little higher proof.
Okay,
so
great.
This would be an opportunity for you to take a look at it and see it in its finished format. You mentioned that the whiskey coming out the still is quite dry, and it still is in its barrel-aged form. But our rye is really a unique mash bill. It's 60% rye grain and 40% wheat. So we were looking for a mash bill that provided a little bit of spice and pepper with the rye grain, but really nicely balanced off and sweetened up a little bit with that nice balance of the wheat grain. So this is our Last Feather rye, and you'll get some nice whiskey notes here.
Okay, yeah.
The whiskey is at 90 proof, so all of our line here is actually at 90 proof. We wanted to give the consumer the option to dial it back a little bit if they'd like, add a little water or however they drink their whiskey, or they can drink it at 90 proof, which is great too. But it gives the consumer a little flexibility to dial it back if they'd like.
I had quite some sweetness in here, almost like a bit of honey, I would have said.
There's a little honey. You're still getting a little spice and a little pepper from that rye grain.
Yeah. Like with the finish in the back, I get the spiciness, but in the beginning, like the front of my tongue is filled with honey. That's cool.
A little honey, a little caramel, a little vanilla, a little butterscotch in there.
I didn't get it with the smell though. I don't know why, but have it in taste. Great.
Thank you.
So, why did you call yourself Journeyman Distillery?
Good question. For me, it had a lot to do with the idea of traveling.
Okay.
So I lived in Scotland. I had an opportunity to go to a friend's distillery in Tasmania. So I went down there on 2 different occasions.
Okay.
And then, of course, kind of a culmination of my travels kind of led me here to opening the distillery. But also it's this idea in life, you really never know where you're going to be from one day to the next. So one day you could be doing one thing, and the next day you're making whiskey.
That is great.
Life truly is a journey. You never know where you're going to be from one day to the next. For instance, you guys are here today in Three Oaks, Michigan, at Journeyman Distillery. You probably never thought you'd ever be here, and here you are.
I would have I've traveled now through Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois, now Michigan, and I would have thought that it's a lot different. So, but I would have imagined Kentucky and Tennessee to be just cornfield.
Yeah.
But it's different. You have a lot of oaks there. You have a lot of trees and a lot
They're
of
pretty states.
yeah. And up here, I knew I've been here before, but
To Michigan.
I'm not sure of Michigan, but like the
Yeah.
area of the
Yeah,
Lake
yeah.
District, I've been around there, so I knew what I was finding here. But I didn't think that you get a great distillery here. So
Yeah.
but now you have it. So that was the rye.
That was our rye.
Yeah, I've heard about the 4-grain one.
The 4-grain's really great. That's the mash that you tried.
Okay.
When we were up at the mash tank at the beginning of the process, you tried our 4 different grains. Would you like to try that whiskey?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be delighted.
Yes. So this is our most complex whiskey. It's got 4 different grains: our rye, wheat, corn, and malted barley. All 4 grains from local family farms here in the Midwest, all kosher, all certified organic. And a lot of people think this is our very best whiskey. The 4 different grains really provide a unique flavor profile, each grain telling a little different story in the whiskey. So I really like the mouthfeel on this whiskey. It's kind of got a nice weight to it. It's got a nice long finish. And some really unique flavor profiles, each grain telling a little bit of a story there.
Yeah, it's great. Feels like cereals in your mouth.
Yeah.
So, but with a lot of other stuff coming in and out, so it's
Yeah.
like I don't know.
It's hard to put your finger on. The first time you try it, it's like just kind of like a bouquet of different flavor profiles. And I find that each time I drink this Silver Cross whiskey, I identify a little different characteristic to it that maybe I didn't pick up before. Just because the 4 different grains, you're just getting all these interesting flavors. And each time I drink it, I feel like I get a little different flavor.
Yeah, it's very complex. Got a lot of stuff in there. I can almost. I think I've identified the corn, and maybe the rye is like gives you like the glowing, a little
Gives a
spiciness,
little spicy warmth.
warmth. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the word I was looking
Yeah.
for. So
And the wheat gives it kind of like a butteriness, almost kind of a richness or a nice almost sweetness to it. And then that maltiness, it's so characteristic in single malts. We get a lot of people that like Scotch and like our Silver Cross whiskey.
oh, now I get a bit of dryness.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, your buildings here, a
Yeah.
lot of heritage.
Truly.
I've read about it that you was a whip and corset plant.
That's right. So this was an old corset and buggy whip factory. You can't
Okay.
make these things up. We actually have a party that we do every summer. We have it on July 4th, which is our Independence Day. But it's a party where we're celebrating the history of the old building here and the fact
Okay.
that we now make whiskey. So we call the party Corsets, Whips, and Whiskey. And
That's
we
great.
feel like we really have the essential ingredient to a great party, and that being the whiskey.
Okay.
But the history of the building is really incredible. A guy in the 1800s named E.K. Warren started his business here, and he started with the manufacturing of corsets and buggy whips. So he took the quill of a turkey feather, and he made a lightweight, flexible product out of it that he called the Featherbone. So this is the Featherbone Factory building. We named our bourbon after the name, Featherbone Bourbon.
Okay.
And this
Great.
Featherbone product he was able to use it to make buggy whips. This, of course, before automobiles, people are going around in their horse and buggies. And
Probably you had more demand for whips by
yes,
during
back
that
then,
time.
yeah, exactly. So it is not quite the call for it now, but and he was able to use that same Featherbone product to replace the whalebone in women's corsets. So whalebone was very hard, inflexible, and really hard to come by. And
definitely.
so this Featherbone stave is what it was that replaced the whalebone. Basically revolutionized the way women's clothing was being made in the 1800s. And so E.K. Warren started his business right here in this building, but had offices in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, London. He had an office in Germany, Paris, and as far as Australia. So this guy literally transformed the way women's clothing was being made in the 1800s.
So this is like a revolutionary building for
it's got a great history.
clothings.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, who knows? Maybe someday we'll be making corsets and buggy whips again here. But right now we're making distilled spirits, of course.
Great. So this is a bourbon whiskey then.
Yes, this is our bourbon. Traditionally a Kentucky product. Mm-hmm. Most people think actually that you can only make bourbon in Kentucky, but of course that's not true. Bourbon is actually a classification. It's an American product. It can only be made in America, and we're lucky enough here to be making a little bit of bourbon right here in Michigan. So
is the mash bill the secret, or
no? Our corn or our bourbon is made from 70% white corn that we get from Southern Illinois. We use 20% wheat. And we actually use just a dash of rye and malted barley in our bourbon. The rye and barley gives it a little added complexity, a little depth, a little bit more character, and really kind of adds an extra dimension to the bourbon by using those four grains. So this is also a 4-grain whiskey, but of course being 70% corn, it's a bourbon whiskey.
It's a bourbon whiskey.
That's right. Let's pour a little bit of it.
Yeah.
So I always like to point out the source of our water here. So there's a pump house out front. It's an old 1800s pump house, and the image of it's on the front of our bourbon bottle here. And that's where we get our water. The water in Three Oaks comes up from an aquifer 130 feet under the ground. And the town of Three Oaks is only 1,400 people, so they're not required to treat the water. So the water that we're getting is just a really pure water source out of this aquifer, and it's untreated. There's no chlorine, there's no fluoride, there's no added chemicals to it. So we really feel like we're starting off with a great water source, and we wanted to highlight that fact on the front of our bottle.
Okay, so you have your organic wheat, organic grains, you have the water. Then I've seen that you don't chill filter.
Yeah.
So you really end up with a natural product.
It's truly, and I think this is the way whiskey was meant to be drank. I think this is how whiskey was made in the old days when this factory was built. And we're really trying to do things the right way. We're a grain-to-glass distillery using really clean grains, really clean water source. And we hope it shows in the products.
And you do everything by yourself, yeah?
Yeah, we do everything by hand here. We don't source any products.
Okay.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, definitely sweeter.
Mm-hmm. A little fruit on the nose there.
Mm-hmm.
I like the weight of this one a little bit. I almost get almost like a chocolatey flavor profile through the mid palate there.
Yeah. How much rye did you say is in there?
It's only 5%.
5%.
But you get a lot of that rye, I feel like, on the finish. Mm-hmm. You get that bite that really comes through.
Yeah, you get, in the beginning you really feel the bourbon.
Yeah.
It's like a bourbon, like sweetness, caramel.
Yeah. All that corn
candy, maybe a bit of chocolate, a hint of chocolate, I would say.
Yeah.
But then in the end, you still got some like, that reminds me of rye whiskey a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. On the finish, I get the rye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I've read something here that you do a journey cask.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We call it the traveling barrel. Of course, we're playing off that Journeyman name.
Okay.
The idea of the travel aspect, of course. So you can come to our distillery. You can pick out a barrel size that you like. You can pick out any of our whiskeys, from our Silver Cross to our wheat whiskey, our bourbon, our rye. So you choose what's going to go into the barrel. We'll make the whiskey for you. We'll put it into the barrel, and then when it's mature, we'll give you a ring. Depending on the size of barrel you pick, you either get 2, 4, or 6 bottles of the whiskey out of that actual barrel. And then you get the barrel itself. So we have a lot of people that want to commemorate a special occasion. whether it be an anniversary, some newlyweds, a significant event in their life. They come in either beforehand or at the time of the event, fill the whiskey up. A year later, let's say it's a wedding, they can come back a year later and celebrate by cracking that barrel open, drinking some of that whiskey, and of course they get to take the barrel home with them.
Okay.
And a lot of times they have the guests sign the barrel and things like that. So it's a
great.
fun program. It works well for us. It works well for our guests, and fits with the Journeyman theme.
Yeah, I've been here at your restaurant and your bar, and you do a great job with all the cooking as well. You have
Thank you so
much.
much.
What's it? Organic food.
Yeah.
We're
so
trying that's what I
trying to
really
continue that
liked
theme.
about it. I had the pulled barbecue chicken sandwich. That was great, and then now I had the veggie sandwich. That was also really great. So I can advise everybody who's around here in Michigan, come here, have the food, have a look at the distillery, try the whiskey, definitely. That really great stuff. And thanks for having us here.
Yeah, it's great having you guys as our guests, and it's wonderful to spend some time with you.
And if you ever travel to Germany, then please visit us.
I will. I hope to get there. Actually, maybe this fall. So I'll take you up on that.
Yeah. So, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up. And goodbye.